HP sells a little plastic ink cartridge, about the size of a matchbox, that holds barely a few teaspoons of liquid. It looks like nothing. And yet, drop for drop, the stuff inside can cost more than fine champagne. Now, champagne is a serious thing. It only comes from one region of France, made under strict rules that dictate the vineyards, the grapes, even how they're pressed. Years of aging, centuries of craft, poured into a tall, elegant bottle. Line the two liquids up by volume, milliliter against milliliter, and something absurd happens. The celebration in the bottle loses. The colored fluid in the plastic box wins. Sometimes, it even outprices the pricey perfumes behind the department store counter. So how does murky liquid in a cheap plastic shell end up priced like a luxury nobody spent a century perfecting? Nothing about the object explains it. The answer isn't hiding in the cartridge at all. So if a cartridge can outprice a bottle from champagne, drop for drop, the honest first guess is that the liquid inside must be something extraordinary. Some rare, engineered fluid worth its weight in gold. So let's open one up. What you actually find is almost boring. Ink is mostly water. Into that water goes a small amount of colorant, either a dye that dissolves completely or a pigment ground into microscopic particles that stay suspended, like flour stirred through a glass of water. The rest is cheap supporting cast, solvents to keep it flowing, humectants so it won't dry into a crust inside the nozzle, a little something to stop mold and to hold the surface tension steady. Common industrial chemistry, bought by the barrel. None of that is exotic. The colorants and solvents that go into ink are the same broad families of materials used across paints, coatings, and printing at industrial scale. Bought in bulk, the raw liquid costs a tiny fraction of what the cartridge sells for, which leaves us stuck. If the fluid is basically colored water with some clever chemistry stirred in, the price tag can't be about the ingredients. The expensive part has to be hiding somewhere the liquid never touches, somewhere in the deal itself. So if the liquid inside is nearly worthless, you'd expect the machine that squirts it to carry the real cost. And walk into any electronics aisle and you'll spot something odd about the machine's price tag. A brand new inkjet printer can cost less than a nice dinner. Sometimes it's cheaper than the two ink cartridges tucked inside its box. A whole machine with motors and circuits and a scanner, priced like an afterthought. Now think about everything crammed into that plastic shell. Precision, print heads, rollers and gears, a power supply, a control board, tiny nozzles that fire droplets thinner than a hair. Real engineering sold for pocket change. Here's the thing that should stop you. In many cases, the company sells that printer for less than it cost them to build and ship it. They're losing money the moment it leaves the shelf. And that makes no sense on its own. No company builds a business by handing you its main product at a loss, unless the printer was never really the product they were selling. So how does a company survive, practically giving the machine away? It doesn't just eat the loss and hope. The loss is the plan. And the trick is old enough that it has a name, borrowed from a very different aisle. The classic version comes from shaving. As the story goes, a razor maker figured out that the handle was never really the product. Sell the handle for almost nothing, even at a loss. The real money lived in the blades you keep buying forever. The logic is beautifully simple. A handle is a one-time sale. Blades are forever. So you take the pain once on the thing people buy rarely, and you make it back many times over on the thing they can never stop buying. Economists call it the razor and blades model. And it's everywhere once you notice it. The coffee machine that needs its little pods. The game console, sold cheap, that only pays off through the games. The cheap device is bait for a lifetime of refills. And the inkjet printer might be the purest example ever built. Everything about it fits the pattern almost too perfectly. The machine is the handle. The cartridge is the blade. Nobody buys a printer just once and walks away happy. You need to print again next week, and the week after. Every page you make is quietly a request for more ink, which means every printer sold is really a promise to buy from that company again and again, long after the box is in the recycling. So that suspiciously cheap price tag suddenly makes sense. The company isn't losing on the printer by accident. It's paying to put its refill machine on your desk. The device was never where the profit was hiding. And giving away the razor only works if the buyer can't wander off to somebody else's blades. So the real question is, once that cheap printer is sitting on your desk, what stops you from buying whoever's ink is cheapest? The answer is shaped into the plastic itself. Each brand's cartridge is a proprietary shape, cut with its own ridges and tabs and slots, so it fits that machine and only that machine. A competitor's ink physically will not go in. This isn't an accident of engineering. There's no technical reason ink couldn't come in one universal bottle you refill from. The bespoke shape exists to answer exactly one question: who gets paid when you run dry? So the decision that felt free at the store checkout was actually the whole decision. Pick the printer, and you've quietly picked your ink supplier for the entire life of the machine. There was only ever one door out, and it's the one you walked through. And that machine doesn't wear out fast. A printer can sit on a desk for years, which means the company isn't selling you one cartridge. It's booking you as a captive customer for the whole life of the device. Cheap up front, locked in for years, buying refills at whatever price the maker names. That's the trap doing its job. But a determined buyer could still try to sneak cheaper ink into that proprietary slot, which is a problem the manufacturers saw coming. But a proprietary plastic shape only goes so far. Somebody will always figure out how to mold a cheaper cartridge that clicks into the same slot. So the makers added a second lock, one you can't see with your eyes. Look closely at a modern cartridge and you'll spot a tiny gold contact strip, no bigger than a fingernail. That's a chip. And its real job has almost nothing to do with holding ink. The chip is a handshake. When you slide the cartridge in, the printer whispers a question, and the chip has to whisper back the right answer. Genuine cartridge? The gate opens. Anything else? The printer folds its arms. This is what engineers call DRM, digital rights management, the same kind of digital gatekeeping that locks a movie to one account. Except here, it's guarding a few drops of colored water, deciding whether your printer will deign to use them. And the gate can move even after you've bought in. Printers download firmware updates, quiet little tune-ups sent from the company. But some of those updates arrive carrying new instructions about which cartridges to trust. In October 2019, Epson faced a class action complaint over exactly this. The filing alleged that a firmware update quietly reprogrammed printers to reject third-party cartridges, machines that had happily accepted those same cartridges the day before. So why spend real engineering money making your own product, refuse the cheaper option? Because the printer was never where the money lived. Every rejected refill is a customer nudged back toward the one supply the maker actually profits from. So the cartridge guards the ink you paid for. But here's a stranger twist. Even the ink you're allowed to use, you don't fully get. A surprising share of it never touches a single page. An inkjet works by firing microscopic droplets through nozzles finer than a human hair. Let those nozzles sit unused and the ink dries, clogging them solid. So the printer fights back with routine housekeeping. Every so often, the machine runs a cleaning cycle. It pushes ink through the nozzles on purpose, flushing them clear, wiping the head, and dumping that used ink into a little sponge pad tucked inside. None of it reaches your document. That flush happens more than you'd guess. Power the printer on, and it might clean. Let it rest a few days, and it cleans again. If you print rarely, those cycles can quietly drink a real chunk of every cartridge. Then there's the warning itself. The printer flags low ink long before the cartridge is dry, and many machines simply refuse to keep printing once that threshold trips, even with usable ink still sloshing inside. So between the housekeeping and the early goodbye, you buy a full cartridge and hand a slice of it straight back. You're paying for ink that services the machine, not your pages, and you replace it sooner than the liquid alone would ever require. So if you never even reach the bottom of the cartridge, that shocking per milliliter number gets shakier the closer you look at it. And it starts with just how little liquid you're actually buying. A standard cartridge might hold just a few milliliters of ink. A few. That's less than a spoonful. When you divide a whole product's price by a puddle that small, the math explodes into something absurd. Divide almost any product by a tiny enough amount, and you get a headline number. Split the price of a nice bottle across a single drop, and that drop looks priceless too. The per milliliter trick works on anything small. The champagne comparison quietly cheats in the other direction too. Champagne, by law, is a whole protected craft, sparkling wine made only in one French region under strict rules, from designated vineyards and specific pressing methods. That price carries centuries of appellation. So the drop-for-drop showdown was never really about the liquid on either side. The ink isn't expensive because it's precious, and the champagne isn't the point at all. Real price lives in the deal you agreed to at the checkout. Cheap machine now, costly refills forever. The tiny volume just makes that arrangement look ridiculous when you shrink it down to a single milliliter. So if the money isn't in the liquid, and it isn't in the machine, there has to be a company somewhere, reporting exactly where it does land? There is, and you can read it in their own filings. HP is one of the biggest printer and imaging companies on Earth. Personal computers, monitors, presses, sure, but printing and the supplies that feed it are a huge slice of what the company actually does. And this is a giant. In its 2025 annual filing, HP reported revenue north of $50 billion. Tens of billions of dollars flowing through one company year after year from these boxes and their little cartridges. Here's what matters about that pile. The printers are the loud, cheap thing on the shelf. The supplies are the quiet thing that keeps earning long after you've carried the box out of the store. One is a sale you make once, at razor-thin margin. The other is a sale you make again and again at a margin that would make most businesses weep. That's the engine, running at industrial scale. The trick isn't hidden in a vault somewhere. It's written plainly in the numbers a public company has to publish. The whole strategy we've been unpacking? At HP's size, it's not a quirk. It's the business. But a machine that big and profitable has a quiet vulnerability. Every refill is still a decision, and a decision is a moment where you might walk away. So the model kept evolving towards something that removes the decision entirely. Instead of buying ink when you run low, you sign up. A small monthly fee, and cartridges arrive at your door before you notice you needed them. No trip to the store, no shelf, no pause to reconsider. Convenience sold as a plan. Here is where it turns clever. To bill you correctly, the printer has to know how much you print. So it phones home. It counts your pages and reports them back to the company, quietly, over your own internet connection. And the meter runs on pages, not ink. Print past your monthly allowance and you can be charged for the overage. Print nothing, and in some plans, you still pay for the month. You are no longer buying a supply. You are buying access, which quietly rewrites what you own. The plastic box sits on your desk, but its ability to actually print now depends on a subscription staying active on a server somewhere far away. So the business shifts one final step. It started by selling you a razor, then it sold you the blades, now it rents you the right to use the machine you already paid for. The refill was never the finish line. The relationship was. But wherever a company builds a wall this profitable, someone starts selling ladders. The moment ink got expensive enough to notice, a whole counter-industry grew up around one simple promise: the same page for a fraction of the price. The simplest fighters are third-party cartridges. Independent makers reverse engineer the shape, fill it with their own ink, and sell it for a sliver of the brand name price. Same slot, same page, far less money leaving your pocket. There are refill kits, little bottles and a syringe that let you top off the cartridge you already own. It's messy, it stains your fingers, and it treats the cartridge as a container to reuse, rather than a thing to keep rebuying. But the boldest move flips the whole model on its head. Tank-based printers ship with big refillable reservoirs you fill from cheap bottles. The machine costs more at the register. The ink costs almost nothing to top up. Notice what that does. It takes the razor and blades deal and reverses the arrows. You pay for the device honestly up front, and then the refills stop being the trap. The cost lands where the value actually is. And the brands noticed. When enough buyers drifted toward cheaper ink and refillable tanks, the big names started selling their own tank printers too. The wall didn't come down. But the market had pressed hard enough to force a door in it. So if the tank printers and refill kits really do flip the math, why hasn't everyone just walked away? Why does the expensive ink model keep surviving, year after year, sale after sale? The answer isn't really about ink at all. It's about us. Standing in the store, you're not comparing years of ink. You're comparing two price tags on a shelf. One printer costs a little, another costs a lot. Your hand reaches for the cheap one before your brain even runs the long-term numbers. And that low upfront price does something clever. It wins the moment of decision, the only moment that ever really counts. The cost that comes later, spread across dozens of cartridges, feels distant and abstract. Future, you can deal with it. Then the machine is on your desk. You paid for it. And every refill you buy is another small deposit into a device you already own. Walking away means admitting all of that was money poured into a thing you're now abandoning. That's the quiet genius of it. Every cartridge is annoying, but never annoying enough. The pain arrives in small doses, spaced months apart. always smaller than the hassle of starting over. So we grumble, we pay, and the whole model just keeps humming along. So we keep the machine we already own, and we keep feeding it. But once you see why, the whole thing flips. That cheap printer on the shelf was never really the thing being sold. Look at which half of the deal the company actually guards. The printer, they'll almost give away. The ink, they wrap in chips, in firmware, in proprietary shapes. You protect the thing you profit from. That's the curious part. The device isn't the product at all. It's the delivery system. It exists to make sure you buy the liquid, again and again, for years. So the eye-watering price per milliliter stops being a mystery. It isn't the cost of a fancy fluid. It's the whole business collapsed into one small tube, the part of the deal where the money was always meant to live. Next time you walk the printer aisle and see a machine priced like a toy, you'll know exactly where its real price is hiding. Not on the box. In the cartridge you'll buy for the rest of its life. Everyone's got one of these, a price, an object, a rule you walk past every day and quietly wonder about. Drop yours in the comments. It might be the next thing we pull apart. And if you'd like the reason why to keep finding you, subscribe.